Welcome to the Alchemist Nation Podcast. We are a community of business and real estate professionals who are on a shared mission to help every individual achieve financial freedom through right action, the right knowledge, and the right accountability. Join me, Andrew MacMurray, and my co-host, Mitch Jaworski, as we find and interview those who have mastered wealth and who have a desire to share their wisdom with you. Enjoy.
Welcome, everyone, to the Alchemist Nation Podcast. We are back. We're back. So this is the reboot of the Alchemist Nation Podcast, and this is the inaugural episode, and should be a fun one because although I am your host, and my name is Mitch Jaworski, for those that don't know, and my co-host, Andrew MacMurray, I'm also going to play guest today, and Andrew's going to be grilling me with all the questions of how I built my real estate portfolio, how I found success, and how Alchemist Nation has, expanded my horizons and my network. So it's going to be fun. It's going to be a little different. Going forward, we'll have a guest that the two of us will interview in future weeks. But for this one, I'm in the hot seat, and I'm looking forward to it. And it makes sense. I know, Andrew, you said the goal is to interview everyone that's speaking at the summit, which we have coming up. The 2023 100 Millionaires Summit is coming up in November, and I'm blessed that I am one of the speakers. So because of that, you want to get me on record and get this interview in. So happy to be the guinea pig to start the relaunch of the Alchemist Nation Podcast. So how's everything going with you, buddy?
Awesome. Everything's incredible, man. Thank you for being part of this relaunch, for hosting it. This is I'm excited to see where we go with this. Like you just said, yeah, for the next few months we'll interview like all the hosts, all the speakers on the stage for the 100 Millionaire Summit, starting with yourself, because got to go with the best first.
100 millionaires.
100 millionaires. Yeah, I had to find some merch. We got
there you go. Hey, those thermoses are money. I got 2 of those. Coffee stays hot forever. Water stays cold forever.
Hey, get an executive ticket to the summit. I think you get the t-shirts, the cups, all that shit for free. So
this is true. You get all the swag. The VIPs get all the swag. You're getting a swag. I think it's like it's still a swag bag, but I think it's a more hefty, bigger swag bag than last year. So it only gets better. So
I love it. Yeah. So for a little bit of context, I suppose, for anybody who doesn't know me, I am Andrew MacMurray. I've been with Alchemist Nation for, a few years now, 3 or 4 years. I've got to watch it grow and evolve into what it is today and where we're taking it. And it's a movement, be a part of it. Come join, right? It's for everybody. But so.
Heck yeah.
Yeah, man. Yeah. So, but anyway, so I've worked a lot on the back end. I'm starting to put my face out there now. So I guess you're going to see more of me, but I've really helped.
The curtain back.
We're pulling the curtain back. No more just sitting in the messaging and the marketing. I get to
I'm stepping out of the lab and getting out there.
Absolutely. So it'll be fun. It'll be a fun new journey for myself. And I thank you for being a part of it with me.
100%. Pleasure. Should be fun. And looking forward to, all the wonderful guests we're going to get to speak to, and just the continued networking that it's going to provide. So, and the value we can add to, the community, especially as it grows. So, Alchemist Nation is a growing community, and it's one that really focuses on, just that abundance mindset and kind of growing the pie bigger for everybody. So it's a good place to be, good group of people. And ideally we can share more of that through this podcast. And that's one of the big points of it. So looking forward to it, and looking forward to, at least especially this episode, sharing, what I can from my journey, my experience that may help others. And then also learning from future guests, myself as well, because we all have something to share. We all have different experiences, and Andrew is a kind of testament to that, because he's talking about how he's been, kind of behind the scenes in the back office, so to speak, with Alchemist Nation, and doing a lot that drives the community. But now he's stepping out and getting his face out there so he can build his network and continue to grow and expand not only his wealth, but also just himself. So
Yeah. And you know what? I think I forget about like the things I do. Like as I'm doing them, I just kind of go on to the next thing. So I forget about all the achievements. Like, Gualter himself, before it was all Alchemist Nation and really about the community, and there's multiple leaders and all that stuff. It was Gualter, and we were down in the basement of one of his rental properties with like a little mastermind of 5-10 people on Saturdays. And so, I mean, he taught me everything I know up to this point about marketing, about, social media marketing, about how to put myself out there, how to brand myself. And then also with real estate, right? Like that's how I got my start in buying properties. And, when COVID hit, we sold them and, traveled on the road in an RV for a year and took a different turn. So I got to get back to buying real estate. But yeah, let's get into your story. Let's just start.
Cool experiences though, right? That's cool.
Yeah. Experience. So I forget, other than just the cool vibe and being a part of the people, like through this community, I've done a lot. It's helped me to build myself in ways I probably never would have without this group of people. So, and the Alchemist Nation is what continues to provide me support in all the areas I'm looking for success. So
heck yeah.
I have nothing but the best things to say, which is why I'm here. I'm here and I don't plan to go anywhere.
Nice.
Well, let's talk about you, man. Let's segue into that. As far as your journey specifically, and not even a part of Alchemist Nation, just how you got here in life. Like, can you walk us through that? Like pivotal moments, like maybe key mentors, and then also specifically steps that you took that you found to be very successful that you think others should take, and ones that you're warning people not to take.
Yeah, that's interesting. I mean, I don't know, steps not to take. That's tough because you learn from pretty much everything, right? I mean, either something's a success or it's a lesson, right? But yeah, there's definitely ways to go about things, and that's why getting education or having coaches or mentors helps, because they give you the correct path, so to speak, or the path that worked for them. But yeah, I'm going to try and mainly focus on my real estate story, because obviously anyone that knows me knows I've done a lot of things between stocks, crypto, options, and all things investing. But for real estate, it was really in 2014 when I caught the bug, because I wanted to create passive income. Up until then, it was all active income. It was from either jobs or it was from trying to day trade. But all those are like still active income. Like if you're not doing transactions, you're not making money. And I was like, all right, there's got to be a way, to create passive income. Like what's something that I can generate money with my money that doesn't take a lot of work? And obviously real estate isn't completely passive, but it's passive-ish. And, it can be almost completely passive if you use, property management and things like that. And it can be somewhat passive if you decide to, manage your own properties and whatnot. So that's really when I first thought of it. So the short version is my first property came up in that a friend of mine, his dad was renting a house in the same community that my friend lived in. And we used to watch football together on Sundays. And the house that he was living in was getting foreclosed on because his landlord hadn't paid the mortgage in like a year and a half. So clearly he wasn't using the rent money my friend's dad was paying him to pay the mortgage. He was just using it, I guess, for himself. So I told him, I was like, hey, if I can get a 3-bedroom place and rent it to you for the same amount you're renting now, would you be interested? And he's like, heck yeah, like 100%, let's do it. And like, he'd been renting for 5 years, and I knew he was pretty much gonna be like renting probably for a long duration, if not the rest of his life. So I'm like, all right, this will probably be a good long-term tenant. So I guess I broke cardinal rule number 1, don't rent to family and friends, which, trust me, had pros and cons. I'm not going to say there wasn't any drama, but on a whole, it worked out pretty well. And I bought a 3-bedroom townhome, and he was in it for 5 years, and that was until I sold it. The only reason he was out is because I basically decided to sell it. Otherwise, he probably still would be there. And it's been 5 years since I sold it, almost about 4 years. But it's what got me started. And at the time, I still had my day job, so I was able to do it old school. Like I'd save money for a down payment, I'd buy one, I'd start saving money again, I'd buy one. I was buying traditional loans through traditional banks, getting underwritten because I had a decent job that paid decent money. So I was able to, get loans. And I'd had very little debt. I've always been good about that. I didn't have a car payment. I didn't have a mortgage payment, and my first property that I bought as a rental was the first property I bought, period. Like I bought a rental property before I bought like a home for myself. And if I could do it over again, I would have done the exact same thing. So
Major key. Buy rental property before you buy personal property.
right. I mean, and nothing's one size fits all. I always tell people when people ask me for investment advice, I'm like, you got to give me more information about your personal life and your situation, because my risk tolerance, my, overhead, my responsibilities is very different than yours. Like there's no one size fits all for everybody, but you can generalize at least and point people in the right direction. But yeah, so that's how I got started. So first few years, I stayed local. Many people know I have a brand called Scaredy Cat Guide. And the reason that was created was because I was a scaredy cat. Like my first property I bought was a mile away from, where I lived. My second one was like a mile and a half away. My first 4 properties, I could drive to all of them in under 10 minutes. And that was because for some reason I felt like I needed to be able to drive right by them. Makes no sense because now, everything I do is out of state. Everything's 1,000 to 1,200 miles away. I'm buying stuff, sight unseen to an extent. Like my partner goes to look at them. But I don't see him. I'm just like, he tells me what he saw. I'm like, all right, sounds good. So it's interesting how that journey goes as you get more comfortable, especially if you're a risk adverse person. So if you're someone that, struggles with that and you're scared to take risks, it can be a slower progression. And it was for me. But the beauty was that I leaned on my strengths, which were analyzing deals and running numbers. So I trusted the numbers and I took, the emotion out of the decision and I trusted the numbers. That's not to say I still didn't get, emotional about decisions and, probably hesitate and early on miss deals that I should have bought because I was like scared for one reason or another, that if I saw that deal now, I'd buy 5 of them, and meanwhile, back then I was hesitating. But again, this is why I always say, you got to get experience, you got to take action, right? Experience is the best teacher. Get educated, but then you got to get experience by actually doing the thing, right? It's like no different than, someone can teach you, how to throw a proper karate kick, but if you're not actually throwing the kick yourself, you're never going to be able to execute it correctly. You'll fundamentally know how it works, but you won't be able to execute it yourself, right? And I think that holds true with everything, including real estate. So it's like if someone comes to me and I, teach them the fundamentals of analyzing properties and how to go about finding a market and how to go about, purchasing a property, that's great. They have the knowledge they need. But if they don't go and actually do those tasks, they're never going to get good at them, right? Because I've gotten better and better at them as I've done them. I mean, me now looking at properties and doing deals compared to 2014 is like 2 different worlds. It was like back in 2014, when I look at that guy, it looks like a guy that's playing like, AA baseball compared to the guy now who's in the big show, right? So you got to get the experience once you get the education. So I always preach that. And I found that true in my journey. So, for me, it was slow and steady. I've kind of bought them one at a time the first 3 or 4 years. And then after that, I took like a little hiatus because cryptocurrency was popping off so much in 2018. And obviously a lot of people know I'm big in crypto. So I focused on that. But then in 2019, I got refocused on real estate. And that's when I started investing out of state, primarily in Massachusetts with my one business partner there. I did some stuff in Pennsylvania as well. And that was a initiative of, all right, how do we build a portfolio over the next 3 to 5 years that brings in enough cash flow that my business partner can live off of his half of the cash flow and, do our business full time and step away from his job because he wanted to be where I was. I had left my job in 2017, after being in real estate for a little over 3 years. So between real estate, crypto, some other things, I set myself up where I had enough income coming in where I no longer needed the day job. Did I, walk away from a nice chunk of money? Of course I did, but I didn't I don't want the active income anymore. I choose freedom. So if freedom means a little less money, that's fine. Some people wait until they completely replace their income. I didn't, but again, everyone has their own situation. I was a single guy, no bad debt, no mouths to feed. So I had way more flexibility and way more control over my budget. And I knew if it came to it, I could just go grab a job again if I needed to, because I luckily was in a field that had a lot of demand. So, these are things that you think about when you're doing these things. But yeah, so 2019 was like the, what do I want to call it? I don't know, season 2 in real estate. I did my local thing and then I started doing out of state. And, that became a new, it was new because I no longer had a day job. So it was harder to get loans. Right. So in 2017, 2018, I started learning about non-traditional lenders. I started learning about, debt service coverage ratio loans and things like that. So I started getting familiar with these lenders, started calling these lenders, I started developing, relationships with these lenders and, realized that there's money out there. And there was so much about lending I didn't know, because it's like I knew about hard money, I knew about traditional loans, and that was really it, and that's all I used. And then I was like, holy crap, there's a lot of other lending options out here, right? So I started leveraging those back in 2017, 2018. And then really in 2019, when I started, with, my partner. And from there, it was like, all right, here, this is the starting capital I'm going to put into this business. And that's what it is. So we need to recycle this money over and over again. So that was the strategy. We did the BRRRR strategy, which many people have heard of. If you don't know what it is, it's an acronym for buy, renovate, rent, refinance, repeat. And that's all we've done for the last 4 years now. Buy small multifamily, that's value add, do the work, refi out, get our money out, obviously get them rented up, and then use that capital. And so that same starting capital I put in back in 2019, we've used like, I don't even know, 6-7 times over now. So, people always talk about, you need money to start. I mean, it helps if you have some, but, you don't need a lot. And, you can also do it with no money because you can get private lenders and whatnot. I just had some capital to work with. It wasn't, and, this wasn't a ton of money either. So, it's not like it made things like super easy. I just had a starting nut that we could use. But yeah.
Right. After that point, you either rolled that money in to itself to acquire bigger deals. Now you pulled in a partner. One thing I want to ask, because you pulled in a partner to help you be more boots on the ground and go find deals and stuff. And that allowed you to expand into, season 2. Have you guys pulled in any sort of like financial partner? Or do you need that to like, how much are you looking to scale up? And
so it's funny. I mean, I'll openly admit, like, I like to try and do too much on my own to an extent. And I've gotten better at that. Obviously it started with taking on a partner. We just recently, and I mean, it probably should happen sooner. I think I was putting it off, but we just recently got to a point now where we are going to use, I mean, don't get me wrong, I've used quote unquote private lenders before, but it's more so like, family, friends, and not big amounts, like my brother one time, was a private lender, not, basically bridging the gap, here and there. So I was like, I borrowed 25 from him one time, small amounts, once or twice. But as far as like an actual like private money investor, someone that's just like in my network, that's something I actually just locked down recently. I had a deal I was looking at, and guy I knew over the years, acquaintance, and we were just BSing, and he's like, I was going to invest in real estate, I just don't really have the time, I should stay focused on my thing, which he should, because he makes really good money with what he does. So I was like, put it in be an LP, put in a syndication. He's like, well, what are you doing? And I told him like, well, we just finished this deal and we refied out and blah, blah, blah. And, I got a deal that came across my table that I really wasn't going to go after. But I mean, if you're looking to invest, I could see about putting it together. So, that kind of came together. So that deal doesn't look like it's going to happen because I'm not going to overpay for a deal. And the woman, it's not coming down to my price, it seems, although I had thought we had gotten there. But it's cool because he's ready to go. So I know I have a private money investor with a nice chunk of capital that I can do some damage with deals. So yeah, I'm leveling up to using other people's money at a larger scale, and it's something that I probably should have done sooner. But I've been, I guess, fortunate that I've been able to scale pretty well, just using the little nut that we started with of my own money, and therefore not having to pay anyone else interest ever. Which is saved a lot of money over the years.
Absolutely. No, I love it. I love that. I love your story. I love how it's still very active. You know what I'm saying? It's not, this is what I did. And like, you're not at a level of contentment. You're still like, all right, this is how I'm going to scale up.
Yeah,
next.
I'm still building that portfolio. And I got to be honest with you, like at this point, the only thing I'm working on is that portfolio in Massachusetts with my one partner. I mean, I just sold my last rental property I had in Florida. I sold a few months ago. And, I don't have anything left in Florida, which is sort of bittersweet because Florida market's crazy and it just keeps going up. But I got my eye on some other areas of Florida that are, 4 to 5 hours north of me, because I think the northern half of Florida is where, the explosive growth is going to happen over the next decade, just because my area is so built up already. And I have goals. Me and my partner have goals. We hit the first goal. We hit that initial cash flow number when we started the business. And now the goal is to kind of just double that, double the portfolio size, double that cash flow size, and get to the point where it's not just for my partner paying the bills. It's, being able to live a life with, a nice chunk of discretionary income and still focus on our thing full time. So yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And like I said, we just hit a bunch of milestones between the cash flow number, between him, essentially quitting his job. At the end of August, he's done with his job. He's going to be focusing full time on our business. So exciting times. And we did it in basically 4 years, and probably could have been a lot quicker. Obviously, if it wasn't a part-time thing, so to speak, for him, and even to me to an extent, because, real estate's not my only jam, but it's a journey. But if anyone's willing to spend the time, in 3 to 5 years, you can change your life in real estate. And that's not to say you can't do it quicker. I know people that went big early, partnered with the right people, and, and in the first year, bought a 35 unit and a 28 unit. And just from those two properties, it was life-changing. And in the matter of, a year or two, they were, left their job and doing real estate full time. So, to each their own. We talk about that 3 to 5 years is because it's kind of like an average. If you have success in real estate and you do it right, you can do it in 3 to 5 years, even if you're doing like smaller stuff. If you're able to go bigger, the economies of scale is real. So at the end of the day, I guess it's just numbers, right?
It's just numbers, and it's right. But it's also just like the taking action. I want to highlight like what you said earlier, a piece that was really important that stuck out to me is like the just do it sort of energy of like the way I see it is like, you got raw data, which gets pieced into information, then information can get like kind of translated into knowledge. But that knowledge is just, it's hit or miss until you like run it through experience. Like only after experience can you like actually have like a wisdom that you can share with somebody anyway, or can apply to yourself. And
100%.
It's interesting. And because you're right. Like there's really not one solid path. Like at the end of the day, there's probably as many paths to freedom or wealth as there are people on the planet. So like you got to just try and fail. You got to just take action and fail a bunch of times and succeed a bunch of times. And that's, I don't know. Are you a journey or destination sort of guy?
Right. Well, and that's the thing. Like you said, there's so many different paths, and you just gotta jump on one and get started, because you can't get anywhere if you're not taking steps on one of these paths.
So I'm curious then, because a lot of people, especially at the beginning, I know it's always the case, but especially at the beginning, it's like 80-90% mindset, just like releasing limiting beliefs, accepting that things are possible for you, that you are worthy of things. Like what have been, or maybe you developed them over time, but what have been like your foundational beliefs, like your foundational like principles that have guided you?
That's funny. I think I would kind of have clarity on that. It's interesting. I don't know. I feel like it's a cop out, but really like just trusting the numbers has always been my rock, like just keeping it logical and trusting the numbers. It's like the math has to work. Numbers don't lie. And if the numbers work, then the deal should work. And I know that there's going to always be surprises or potential issues or whatever. But at the end of the day, if the numbers work and there's some buffer in there, you should end up okay, right? Because at the end of the day, you want to have a successful experience, a successful, investment. As far as like my belief system, I don't know. I think it's just natural combination of just do the right thing, trust but verify, and just, I don't want to say stay on the grind because it's a bad word. Like, you don't want to grind your whole life. Like, I come from a town of grinders, of a family, friends of, like, you don't want to be grinding your whole life. That's miserable. Like, there's a period to grind, and then there's a period to shine and enjoy. But
like you're grinding right now.
Yeah, like I don't think I'm really grinding right now. I feel like people keep trying to pull me back into grinds. But that period of my life, I feel like, is over. And that's not to say like I'm not willing to work hard, but yeah, there's a period of life where you're on the grind, because when you're trying to build something, you generally need to be grinding on it, right? But you hit a point where it's like, well, that's no longer the case. It's almost like going from like survival mode to thrive mode, right? It's like the things that got you to where you are using survival mode are no longer the things that are going to grow you further, right? And that's a tough transition for a lot of us, especially a lot of people that kind of like grew up like with the struggle, you know what I mean? Just grew up poor, just grew up with like not much opportunity. And, I was the poor kid in my town growing up, and, didn't really have any connections or really any mentorship, so to speak, or father figure or whatever it is. So I, kind of did it all from scratch. And when you're doing that, you're in that grind mode, right? You get that mindset too, like outwork everybody. And it's great. It serves you for a while, but you don't want to be in that mindset your entire life, because once you achieve things, it's like you're just not enjoying them because you're just still grinding. So there's a difference between ambition and working hard. And most people know that I'm ambitious because I'm always looking at investment opportunity. I'm always looking at ways to grow myself mentally, emotionally, and financially. But you need to find that transition. So, I struggled with it here and there. When I hit a certain point, I kind of got lazy to an extent, because it was just like, what was motivating me in the past, whether it was a healthy motivation or not, was no longer motivating me. And I think it's really when, I didn't have the chip on my shoulder anymore. It's like, I kind of lost motivation, but at the same time, it's good that I no longer had the chip on my shoulder, because it's like, is that really healthy? Right. So you use it when you need it, so to speak, or you use it in a period of your life. So, and then I got to the point where, and, you've heard me say this term before, I'm ambitiously lazy. And
I love that.
Yeah. So, which, book coming soon at some point. I've started to write pieces of it. So I think it's a great book title, and it's a great, potential, just teaching in terms of, how to grow a life and how to grow wealth, being ambitious, but not grinding all the time. Right. So, that was the journey. And, I think I've gotten to a good place where I've been able to grow as a person and let go of, I think, negative attributes that were my motivators, but really was still like self-criticism and just, things like that, like things that have made me a better person, right? Because when you're nicer to yourself, you're nicer to everyone else. If you're highly critical on yourself, then you're highly critical on other people as well, usually, without even realizing it. So, the better you treat yourself, the better you're generally going to treat everybody.
And do you feel like that drives you to be a better, like being highly critical on yourself in some way internally? The critical part of me is like, yeah, but if I'm not highly critical on you, then why you're not going to be focused on growing. If you're just content and happy and nice to yourself, you're going to be content.
I had that internal conversation many, 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 many years.
Interesting. But so you find now that you're loving yourself more and loving others more or less, has that impeded your growth of your personal development, or has that built your character more?
Oh, 100% built my character more. if
Okay.
anything, in terms of like, the person I am, 100%, that's been a positive. If anything, I still, maybe think about like, oh, is this like slowing me down success wise in terms of like, wealth and career and business, right? Because I'm not getting after it maybe the way I used to. But the reality is, I think about, what's, and I don't even want to say happy, because happiness is a momentary thing, right? It's really like living a joyful life. It's like, well, what brings me joy? And what brings me joy is having freedom for with my schedule, not really being a slave to anything in terms of like, oh, I have to do this because I need to pay X bill, or I have to do this because so-and-so is the boss of me, or, whatever it is. Right. So, once I got to that point, I really, really, really struggled letting it go. And then I realized how much more important that was to me than money. Right. It was like, you know what? More money actually doesn't excite me nearly as much as like having just ownership of my life, like true ownership of my life. And most people don't have true ownership of their life. And to some people, it's not as important. To me, it's my number. Like, I've really realized this over the last like 2 or 3 years now. Just like every time things come up and money making opportunities, and I'm like, and it sounds like a great idea, and I'm like maybe excited for a minute, and then I think about everything that has to go into it. I'm like, yeah, I don't want to make that commitment. I was like, and because I'll think about it, I'm like, all right, why am I doing this? And usually if I get excited and it's just about the money, that excitement wears off quick. And to put this into context, it's not like I'm some like, deca millionaire with like, crazy money coming in every month. Like, I have enough passive income to maintain my lifestyle, like the lifestyle that I've had for the last, 10 years, which I enjoy. But, if I want to level up, I have to create more passive income. I have to do, and that's why I still am investing. I still am growing, and I'm still, doing some things, and, I'm still, getting involved in other endeavors, but it's still with that focus on, I'm not going to give myself a job. Like, I'm not going to commit to something that essentially feels like a full-time job and that eats up my schedule and takes away my freedom, right? Because I'm not on anyone's timeline but my own. So whether I create, whether I double my monthly passive income in the next 2 years or the next 5 years or the next 10 years makes no difference to me. Like, because deep down in my core, I know it's going to happen, right? It's not a matter of if, it's a matter of when. And since the when doesn't matter to me, I really, truly just have like this joyful freedom, Now,
I have a question.
It's just.
Do you think you can take that feeling that you've created and bring it back to when you were starting the grind mode? If you could grab that feeling then, do you think it would have helped you through the grind phase? Like, I guess what I'm asking is the time of like self-doubt and like where you're talking, like being hard on yourself and the grind. Can you actually go through that stage and still take all the right actions, and like, but just from this new space of like knowing that that's where you're going and like being like very solid in that? Like,
I will say this. I wish, back then, but maybe even now, I wish I had that level of confidence. Now,
that's what it is. You're saying confidence.
Like now, like, listen, now it's easier for me to say, right? Because I'm, through this journey, I've hit that I've passed the safety point, so to speak. You know what I mean? Where
Gotcha.
I know I'm good. Like, I don't have to, I know that the bills can be paid, the lights can stay on, I can eat food, right? Everything else is just gravy. But once you hit that point, that's the point everyone's trying to get to. And that's goalpost number one, right? So to get to that point, leave your job, right? I did that. And then I've been slowly growing since. But when you're not in that position, it's a lot harder to be in this state of abundance and faith, as opposed to a state of potential of fear and scarcity, right? Because you have to worry about these things. You're like, oh shit, if this goes wrong, how am I going to pay my rent? How am I going to feed my child, right? How am I going to make my car payment? Whatever it is. I don't have that now, because I know that, the car payment is made, the food is purchased. Like, Now it's just about expanding my lifestyle. So I think it does give you a mindset shift. If someone can go in from the jump with that type of confidence, yeah, it'll definitely be helpful. And there's some people that have, like I've met, I co-host a in-person meetup in Delray Beach, and I've met some young bucks that are like getting it done, and like it's impressive, not only like their work ethic, but the confidence they have and the belief they have in themselves. And it's funny, I noticed most of these guys are actually former athletes that like had success, like played like Division I like sports, or so it's funny that happens. But I think that might be part of it. They're just like kind of you're trained to just do it and have confidence that you're going to crush it.
They're disciplined. They're far more disciplined to the sports, because it's really not the motivation that gets the action done, it's the discipline.
Yes. So I like the question though, because if anything, it's to like tell people to act as if, right? Act as if you're already,
sort of thing.
Yeah, like, and visualize it, right? Mike Shine talks about that a lot. Visualize that, you already are that, or you already have that, or you have that, and feel the emotions of that, and then take the steps, right? So if you find, it's kind of like when I was a day trader, right? You back test all these trading strategies and whatnot. And if you find a strategy that works and has an edge, and that, technically is net positive, right? You have faith in it and you have to stick to it, right? And if you diverge from it, you're going to impact your results. But, with that's like with trading, every single day you're going to have some trades that you lose money on. But you can't let it affect you, because that over the course of time, that strategy works. It produces a positive result, right? So someone that could be super, like, can just have the faith to believe in what they're doing, is they know what they're doing, is proven to be successful, and not let their confidence, waver, I think can do very well, and probably do well faster than someone that is just more fearful and worries more and whatnot, because what's, like, if you take a proven blueprint, then what's to worry about?
Right, exactly. Like, and the faith doesn't have to be in something intangible like God or something too. When it comes to real estate, like you were saying, your main faith in real estate is the numbers don't lie.
Yeah.
So I guess, what does the numbers don't lie mean to you? Would be Michael, for someone who's just getting into real estate.
So, I mean, one of the first things you need to learn how to do is like run the numbers, like how to analyze a deal, to know if it makes sense, whether it's a flip, whether it's a buy and hold, whether it's an Airbnb, like it needs to be profitable, right? And there's a formula to figure out if it will be. And now, are those numbers verbatim? No, because your budget's always going to be a little different than you expect it to be. You're estimating costs, right? So you got to get better, initially at those estimates. And as you do, you get more confident in your analysis. But by essentially analyzing a deal from the financial side, from the numbers side, you see if it's worth pursuing, right? And there's no point in pursuing a deal that you can tell on paper is going to produce a loss, right? So for me, it's always been my initial filter, right? I'm not even going to go look at a property if I don't like, at least whether it's in my head at this point, or, running it on an actual calculator. It's got to have a shot at being net positive. Otherwise, why am I going to waste my time even looking at it? Or I need to come up with the number that it does make sense at, right? And then not hesitate to offer that number. That's a big problem you see with new real estate investors, is that, they're scared to make like what are considered lowball offers. And it's just like, listen, just because something's listed for a price doesn't mean that's the price it should sell for. People can ask for whatever they want, right? Just like you can offer whatever you want. So, my buddy John, who I co-host that meetup with down here, he says this all the time. He's like, if your first offer doesn't make your stomach churn a little bit, then you're offering too much. And you know what? He's not wrong. In fact, and it's even like, if every one of your offers are getting accepted, then you're offering too much. Like, you should get more no's than yeses. In fact, I gotta be honest with you, I wonder about me sometimes, because like my hit rate is pretty good in terms of getting deals. Like, I go after closed, and I'm like, all right, either A, I'm really good at just making offers on deals that I know make sense, and I know that there's, I can tell that there's wiggle room on, or I'm offering too much. Like I still worry about that with myself. I'm like, wait a minute, I close on way too many deals that I go after. But
Well, did your stomach churn on those?
Yeah, a little bit. I mean, the problem is like, you kind of lose that feeling as you get used to it. It just becomes standard issue part of business.
Fair. Or
It's
maybe
kind of like when you buy your first property.
Maybe you're right.
Yeah.
Maybe you're just offering too much.
Well, maybe. I mean, well, here's the thing. I'm never offering anything where the numbers don't work, right?
Fair.
So maybe I could have got it cheaper and got even a better deal. Maybe, right? Because I'm not going to even sit here and try and pretend like I'm perfect. Like no one's perfect. You're going to have deals you knock out of the park, and you're going to have deals that are like so-so, right? In fact, the last deal I did, I thought was going to be so-so, maybe even like slightly like and it ended up actually being awesome. Like we crushed it, right? So it's not black and white, right? I've had deals that we thought were going to be home runs that ended up being mediocre, and vice versa. But at the end of the day, I trusted the numbers and knew that one way or another, this thing's probably going to work out. It's just a matter of, will it be, good, or will it just be mediocre, or will it, my always thing is like, worst case scenario, something breaks even, right? Because I'm always going to look at the worst case. Like when I do investment analysis, I'm looking at, worst case, median, and best, right? Like I'm looking at my scenarios, and I'm running numbers too at those scenarios. I might even run numbers at different, like if it's a rental property, like I'm running different rents, right, to see what the numbers look like. I'm running different purchase prices. But at the end of the day, I'm never going to offer more than makes sense to me, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what you have to stick with, right? That's how people get in trouble, overpaying. The saying you make money when you buy is still so true, and it always will be. You make money on the purchase. So learn how to analyze deals and then stick to the numbers. Don't overpay. You're better off not getting a deal than overpaying.
Yeah, that's one of the major things I'm pulling from this conversation is there's like 3 steps I got to add to my daily practice now. That's looking at a deal, running the numbers, and putting in an offer. And then consistency over time. I don't have to have any faith in anything other than that's a proven strategy for a large majority of people.
100%. And, and you got to also know your market. I mean, a lot of people, like for instance, in Florida are struggling because they're just like, man, the numbers make sense, like, 100K less than what they're asking. And then it's not going to get accepted, or I keep putting in offers and I'm just getting no's nonstop. And I'm like, you're going to get a lot more no's, because in like this in Florida, forget about it. Like,
right.
You're going to probably get 100 no's before you get a yes. So, your option is to just do, volume on offers and not let the no's, bother you, or find a market where there's more opportunity in terms of getting deals on the contract. I mean, that was one of the reasons I got, pulled out of Florida, was because I found markets where there was more opportunity to get deals that worked. And I'm like, well, I can spend, 8 months finding one deal in Florida, or I could buy 3 deals in 8 months somewhere else. So I decided to go somewhere else. Why? Because I'm ambitiously lazy, like path of least resistance.
Well, that's smart, because like, especially with opportunities always shifting around the country when it comes to real estate, like it's always moving from region to region. So like you have to kind of know what you want first. What are your goals, and what am I looking for in real estate, to then be able to go figure out where that's located currently.
Yes.
Country. That makes sense. That makes perfect sense. Okay. So, all right. Then the first step would be to figure out exactly what my goals are with real estate and purchasing properties.
Okay. That's always the first step. I mean, when I do like, I recently ran the, look at this, we got guests coming in.
Whoops.
I recently ran the, mentorship for Alchemist Nation, and it's like, that was cool because I got to go through this with people. And the first thing I said was, you need to decide what type of real estate investor you're trying to be, like, because when people jump in, like they want to wholesale, they want to, flip, they want to buy and hold, they want to Airbnb, right? They want to do all the things. And it's like, no, you got to focus on one strategy, because if you don't, you're going to get nothing done. And I know this from experience, shiny object syndrome, right? So that's the first step. Figure out what niche you're going to work. And the thing is, you can always pivot. but you got to focus on one at first. And then if you decide like, you know what, this isn't the right fit for me. It's not the right fit for my personality. It's not the right fit for my, schedule. It's not the right fit for my finances, whatever it is, then you pivot, right? The reason I do buy and hold rentals is because it fits my personality. Like the BRRRR strategy and buy and hold rentals suits my personality and how I like to go about things and what I want to accomplish perfectly. And it's probably one of the reasons it's going well, and I don't find it stressful. Like if I was flipping houses on the regular, and I flipped houses before, but if that was my go-to, I'd be losing my mind, because flipping houses feels like a job. It's active. It's shit's popping up all the time. Problems are popping up all the time. Like you're on a clock, the market's always moving. Like I don't worry about any of that with my buy and hold rentals, because if it cash flows, I don't care what the market's doing, up, down, sideways, do whatever you want. I'm holding this property for 25 years anyway. So you got to figure out what suits you, I don't wholesale. I use wholesalers. I mean, I've, worked some off market myself, but you couldn't pay me to pick up a phone and dial. Like, absolutely not. Nope. Pass. But I know people hitting those phones hard, and they love it and they're on the grind. So you got to figure out what strategy suits you and what gets you to your goals or gets you to that next level, so you can do what it is you want to do. I know people have started wholesaling so they could eventually, flip or buy and hold, right? Build up some capital. And then network. You got to network. You're never going to find the private money investor if you don't build a network. You got to network. You got to go to meetups. You got to be part of communities like Alchemist Nation, right? So.
Well, I think, you mentioned networking, and there's actually a very interesting opportunity for people to network at one of the largest and most incredible events of the year, the 100 Millionaires Summit.
100%.
You're going to be speaking at. So not only do they get to network, they get to network with incredible people such as you. So as we wrap up this conversation, thank you so much for your time, and also going forward, right? This is going to be us. This is going to be us. So what is one final hook for the people about what you talk about at the summit?
As far as the summit goes, also just like know that if you want to be in the room with a bunch of millionaires, come to the summit. Like there's going to be, I don't know how many. I mean, I personally know at least 25 millionaires that are going to be in that room. I'm sure it's going to be more. And obviously there's going to be hundreds and hundreds of people in that room to network with, like-minded people. But it's just like, if you want to talk to people that are doing what you want to do, well, go find rooms where those people are. So 100 Millionaires Summit will be one of them. Orlando's an easy place to get to. And like you said, I'll be there speaking. And honestly, I feel like I'm just a name in the mix. There's some big names that are super successful that I think will be value add for people. So you got to take opportunity when it's there, and 100 Millionaire Summit is always a great opportunity. And, that kind of lends into like kind of just whatever, punchline for people. It's just like network, get around people that are doing what you want to do, and then, take the action, right? Because it doesn't matter how many people you talk to and how much advice you get. If you never take action, you're going to stay in the same place, right? So it goes back to what I said at the beginning of the podcast. Experience is the best teacher.
Just do it.
Yes. Get the knowledge, get the education, get the knowledge, and then take the action, right? 100% believe in education, but if you get education and then you don't take any action, you wasted your time and money on that education.
At the very least, you take action and get results you don't want. You now know what education.
Well, that too. Yeah. And you could do it that way. I mean, you could get no education up front and just go to the school of hard knocks and just do it and figure it out on your own. That is a way to do it. And trust me, I've done that in a lot of things and it's fine. But if you want to speed up your timeline,
right,
learn the foundational stuff from someone else and then hit the floor running, and you will greatly reduce your timeline.
Amen.
So
could not
that's
agree.
what I have to say about that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Mitch. I appreciate you. I appreciate your time. And I guess we'll wrap up. Do you want to wrap up the podcast? I mean, you started it.
I mean, it's I'll step out of the hot seat and just pretty fun. The reboot first episode of Alchemist Nation Podcast. I enjoyed being interviewed and being able to share my story a little bit. And I look forward to, like I said, learning from our guests going forward. And should be a fun journey. And hopefully everyone's going to learn something from it. And, maybe got a little something from this. And I hope to see you at the 100 Millionaires Podcast, 100 Millionaires Summit.
Hey.
Boom.
Thank you.